Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs and today I have a card for visible image stamps. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to create a mini slimline card and I like mine to be 6 inches by 6 inches and then scored at the 3-inch mark. That's my preferred size. There's no real wrong size for it. This is just kind of how I find it the easiest to make. And I also have a black mat that I'm going to cut down. If you've been with my channel for a little bit, you know how much I love to mat everything, especially with black cardstock. I just find that it kind of helps colors pop. And then I am cutting down a piece of watercolor cardstock as well. So this is what I'm going to create my panel on. And I misjudged cutting the black piece. You can see it's way too thick there. So I'm just going to bring it back in and trim it down a little more. So that's okay. I eyeball lots of things. So sometimes I get it wrong. Even with the measurements on there, I still sometimes get it wrong. And then I'm going to score my base and it is scored at the 3-inch mark. So I'm making my mini slimline card a 6-inch by 3-inch card base. And then I'm going to start creating the panels. So I did mist my watercolor cardstock to start with, just because I wanted my colors to blend. Because I'm using purple and blue, or like kind of a tealy color, they'll blend really beautifully. So I did add water when I did this for my first layer. So I used Hocus Pocus mica spray. You can't get that anymore. It was a Halloween edition special from last year, but any purple would do here. And then I also used Salvaged, Patina, and Tumbled Glass. So they're not the exact same colors on the top and bottom for the bluey tealy color, but I think they still look really pretty together. Now you could of course use the same color on the top and bottom and have less variation. I just kind of like variation in my colors. I think that it's more eye-catching that way. So this is just my preference. And then I'm going to heat set it for this first layer here. And now I'm going to do a second layer of color, and I'm not going to add water for this one. I want the color to be more vibrant. The background is going to be what's color. Everything else is going to be like white or gray or shades of gray or black. So I did really want the background to be more vibrant. So I went in with extra color there. And I did heat set that as well. I didn't show it to you again, but I did heat set it. And then I'm going to stamp out this really pretty butterfly from Visible Image. It is from the VI Minis #1 stamp set. And there's a whole bunch of cool little mini stamps in that one, but I did choose to use the butterfly, and I'm going to stamp it out 3 times on some HammerMill cardstock in Memento Tuxedo Black, because this is Copic safe, and I am going to add some shading with my Copic markers. So I brought in N1, N3, and N5. Those are neutral grays. And I always like to start with my lightest color. So in this case, I used the N1, and I just I'm adding shading. Now I know that on the white cardstock, this is going to end up looking fairly dark. And I do want a fair amount of shading just because I want some contrast. I don't want the image to look flat. So I am going to kind of work out from the center, adding some shading in the center of the butterfly. And then I add a little coming in from the sides on the wings as well. There's no wrong or right way to do this. This is just my preference. I mean, you could leave them. I find that they end up looking less dimensional then. And I really like dimension in my cards. So I do have a tendency towards this, but you don't necessarily need 3 colors. You could have brought in 1 color of gray and added shading as well. So this is just a little bit of an extra step, but I like how it looks and I own the markers, so I kind of just tend towards it. But here I'm just going to show you how that kind of adds some dimension to that butterfly. And then I did all 3 and I did them the exact same way. There's no difference there, and I like to work lightest to darkest and then darkest back to lightest. And then I'm going to fussy cut them out. I have some mini snips here. I find them really great for fussy cutting images. I don't mind fussy cutting. I know some people don't enjoy it. I find it relaxing because it's slow. You shouldn't rush through it if you want a smooth cut, but I just kind of, like slowly go through this. I mean, this is sped up. I'm not even cutting at my normal speed here because I don't really want you guys to sit there and watch me fussy cut forever. But this part is even sped up a little bit. So, I mean, it's a very slow process, and I like to hold the scissors in my dominant hand and move the paper with my non-dominant hand. I find that gives me a way smoother cut, and I like to leave myself a white border. I like how that looks. Definitely personal preference, but I like how it kind of looks like a sticker. I like that look, so that's how I tend towards. And then I brought in the Visible Image Ripples stencil, and I'm going to put some Moonstone Nuvo Glimmer paste through the stencil. And it just creates these really beautiful ripple effect in the background. And then of course it's glitter, which I love all the shiny things. This card is no exception to my love of shiny things. There's quite a bit of glitter in this card, but I had a lot of fun with it. And I did take the stencil to a sink and wash it off right away, just so that the glitter paste wouldn't get stuck in the stencil. And then here I just brought in my white gel pen. This was just because I had gone over some of the detail in the edge of the wings, and I really wanted to bring that back. So I brought in my white gel pen, and then I just colored in the little detail in the wings again, just so that it was there and it was a more stark white, because some of the gray did end up in that area and I wanted it to stand out a bit more. So again, an added detail that is not necessary because they were beautiful as is. It's just that I like to go the little extra mile and pay attention to details like that. So I did bring in that white gel pen just to kind of crisp up the areas that I felt should be whiter than they ended up after I brought those gray markers in. And now I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. And my sentiment is from the Visible Image Butterfly Effects stamp set, which has to probably be my favorite stamp set by Visible Image so far. I love it. It's a big one. It's got these big, beautiful butterfly on it. It's just stunning. And it's got some great sentiments in it as well. And this one of a kind is one of my favorite. I think that really works great for a card that is not specific. Like, it's not a birthday card and it's not a thank you card. It's not super specific, but it's still, you know, an encouragement card. And I love making those as well. So the one of a kind stamp is one of my favorites from some of their stamps for the sentiments especially. And then of course I had to white heat emboss it, excuse me, on some black cardstock. Same black cardstock I used for the matte so that it would match. And then I am going to trim it out with my trimmer. This is just because I really want it to be a thin label. I want it to go across the center of one of my butterflies. So I really wanted it to be a very thin label, which is another reason I picked a smaller sentiment intentionally, because I didn't want to hide the butterfly and I didn't want it to cover too much of the background. So, I mean, it was a very intentional choice with that. So I did trim it down into a very thin label. And then I'm going to bring in some thin 3D foam squares. And you saw me trim the center of them to make them thinner than they are, thinner like width wise. And then I'm going to put about 5 of them on the back of my little sentiment strip. And these are quite thin, so you don't get a lot of bulk from them, but you do get a little bit of dimension. And they are a little bit forgiving. You saw there that I lifted one just because I wanted to add a 5th one in so that there was no gapping. And I was able to lift it because I hadn't pressed it down too hard yet. And then I picked one of my butterflies and I'm just going to adhere it straight across the center of the butterfly. I do find using my reverse tweezers makes pulling the label or the sticker sheet, the part that holds the sticky on the thin squares, easier. I find it easier for me as a person who has fairly long nails. I just find that way easier. I actually think that the reverse tweezers are handy for a lot of different things. I love to use them. They're actually one of the tools I think I should have multiple of because I think it'd be more useful. And then for my layout here, you can see that I've kind of played with my layout, decided where I wanted my butterflies to be. And so I'm going to take those same thin 3D foam squares and adhere them just in the center of my butterfly's body. Now this is because I want to prop the wings up, and there's no really great way to do that with the dimension that I want and still make sure that it adheres properly. So I did just put them in the center there. And then of course on the one that's going in the center, the butterfly with the sentiment on it, I put extra on because that one's wings are not going to be propped up because the sentiment already covers a lot of that you're not going to get that same dimension from that butterfly because the sentiment kind of holds it down a little bit. So I didn't even try for that one. I put extra foam squares on that one to make sure that it would adhere properly and stay there. So I did try to center it as good as I could to my eye, because again, I like to eyeball everything. And I do have butterflies hanging off the edges of my card. You could trim them, absolutely. But because it's a mini slimline, I'm going to create the envelope forward anyways. So I would just make a slightly bigger envelope and then they would just fit and I wouldn't be concerned about it. But if that is a concern, you can absolutely trim them off I just chose not to in this specific card just because I like that they're sticking out a little bit. It kind of just gives it a little more whimsy, which I enjoy, but completely up to you, whatever you want to do and whatever's easier for you. And then I did adhere it down to its black matte and to the mini slimline base with my Nuvo Deluxe glue, just because I like the liquid glue for wiggle room. And then, as I said, I had to bring in more sparkle. So I did bring in my Spectrum Noir glitter pen, and I just coated the butterfly wings with it. Just a little added shimmer and shine. Not necessary, but because it's me and because I love all the sparkly things, I had to add it just for a little extra shimmer. And again, then I had to bring in my favoritist white pearls, just for some added shine. Again, not necessary. This card is stunning without them. However, I'm a little bit extra and a more is more style card maker, so I had to add them. And then here you're just going to show you how I propped up the wings. So I just kind of stuck my finger on the body to make sure that it didn't shift, and then I just curled the wings up along my finger so they got kind of a curled effect. And then I called this card finished. So I am entirely excited about how this turned out. I love it so much. It's everything that I love in a card. So I would love to hear what you guys think of this card. Please leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.